I think I have a good one here. This is
Okay,
this
cool.
is this is some pretty big Star Wars news, and it's not without a little bit of controversy. This is from comicbookmovie.com, and it says the Clone Wars star Ashley Eckstein. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right.
It's
Talks
Eckstein. Ashley Eckstein.
so Ashley Eckstein talks
There you go.
Rosario Dawson being cast as Ahsoka Tano in The Mandalorian. So a lot of people have probably heard by now that Rosario Dawson has been cast as Ahsoka Tano for the next season of The Mandalorian. But there are some fans who are a little upset about this because they are fans of the actress currently playing Ahsoka Tano in the animated series. Says some fans aren't happy about Ahsoka Tano actress Ashley, and I've already messed up the last name. Help me with it, Dave.
Eckstein. Ashley Eckstein.
Eckstein being overlooked by Lucasfilm for The Mandalorian Season 2. And the actress has now issued a statement about Rosario Dawson's casting. So this is a statement directly from her. It says, ever since Ahsoka Tano first debuted in the Clone Wars, she's been a fan favorite character brought to life by talented voice actress. Wait a second, that's not her quote. Where's her quote? Oh, here we go. It says, it has been my dream for 14 years to continue to play Ahsoka Tano in all forms. She says she will continue to be grateful for opportunities to help create stories for Ahsoka Tano, and I'm always happy to see her legacy continued. I am only one member of a tremendously talented team of people that it takes to bring Ahsoka Tano to life. The actress continued, the final decisions for Ahsoka are not mine to make, and I cannot comment on something that I truly know nothing about. So I think it's very clear that she is disappointed. I don't know if she had any kind of expectation that she might be cast, if somebody said something to her that she might be cast for the live action version of Ahsoka. I do think it's interesting. Ashley is actually a little bit younger than Rosario Dawson. They're about like two or 3 years apart, I believe. She is actually a little bit younger than Rosario. I think Ahsoka in the Mandalorian timeline would be about 50. Does that sound about right to you, Dave? I think Ahsoka would be about 50 years old in the Mandalorian timeline.
I'm not exactly sure in terms of her age. I mean, that sounds about right. But again, because Ahsoka is an
Well,
alien race.
Ahsoka when she debuts is about 14. The Clone Wars is about 3 years long. So at the end of the Clone Wars, she would be about 17. When the Galactic Civil War starts, the original Star Wars, that's about 20 years later. So that's 37 right there. And then you have however long the Galactic Civil War is, which most people estimate 5 years.
Right.
Okay, so that would put her in her 40s. And then Mandalorian is supposed to be like 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So
Right.
she would be close to 50. You know what I mean by that standard. So I don't know if that had something to do with the cast decision or not. I don't know. But clearly, you can sense the disappointment in her statement that she was not cast. There's a lot of people praising the casting of Rosario Dawson, are really psyched about it and really happy about it. I'm curious. Do you have any thoughts about it, Dave? Did you have any kind of skin in this fight?
Well, I do feel like I have a little bit of skin in the fight just because I have actually met Ashley on a couple different occasions. I actually, when she started her universe, I actually put together a pitch package of some things, and actually met with her at San Diego Comic-Con when her universe was just getting started. And I am quite fond of her, and I'm quite fond of her in the role of Ahsoka Tano. And I do think, in all honesty, she possibly, if she had wanted, I think she could have played the role. So I myself,
I've actually seen videos where fans have given her lightsabers, and she's actually like kind of manipulated them and stuff like that, and the crowd really whoops it up, and so I know that there was a lot of people in the fandom that were kind of hoping for this, that eventually they would do a live action version and they would let her do it. Now, I looked on her IMDb, and as far as I can tell, she has not done any live action work for quite a while. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but when I looked up her IMDb, I had to go back quite a bit to find a live action role that she's done. So I don't know if that has if she's kind of been typecast for lack of a better term, because that does happen to voice actors. Because a lot of voice actors are like, she started out doing live action. If you look at her IMDb, her earlier roles, she was just like a guest star. Like what was one that stuck out to me? She was on that 70s show. She actually guest starred on that 70s show. That was one of her IMDb credits. And so what happens is a lot of actors, they start out however they start out, but generally, they'll start out like live action, and then they'll get into voiceovers. And a lot of times, once they get into voiceovers, that's it. They're just a voice actor. Hollywood is really brutal about that sometimes, So you have these very talented actors who do get kind of typecast when it comes to voiceover. And I know there's a big conflict also, because on the other side of things, what happens all the time is when they make like a movie version of some popular animated series, like for instance, Transformers is a good example. They tend to recast everybody. Like, it was a huge deal that Peter Cullen got to still play Optimus Prime. That was like a huge victory for voice actors, because typically what happens is they recast the voice of some famous, like they make it Al Pacino, you know what I mean, or something like that. And I know voice actors hate that. So they kind of get screwed on both sides in the business. You know what I mean? They kind of get screwed on both ends. And I think a lot of people are feeling that right now. I, for one, I don't feel like I have a lot of skin in this fight, because I have not been a big supporter of the Clone Wars, although I saw the movie and I saw it in the theaters and I liked it. I'm one of the few people that actually liked the Clone Wars movie, and I actually saw it in the theater and I actually enjoyed it. And that was the introduction of Ahsoka Tano. That was the first time she appeared in anything. So I am familiar with the character, and I have seen some episodes of Clone Wars. Clone Wars just has never really been a big thing for me. I have trouble getting into it. I'm not like a huge fan of the animation style. In fact, I actually like the original Clone Wars cartoon better, which is only like an hour long, I think, if you put all the clips together. Do you remember that one, Dave? It's the one that was 2D animation.
That's the Genndy Tartakovsky series. Yeah, I'm quite familiar. I quite like the 2D one as well, so I'm very familiar.
I actually bought the full collection for my brother, because my brother was really into Star Wars at that time, and like for his birthday or Christmas, I got that for him. So we have it. I live with my brother. We have it here in the house. That might be something fun to actually review at some point too, because it is the basis of all the Clone Wars show. Even though they changed a lot of things, pretty much all the characters, or a lot of the major characters, are introduced in that cartoon. Like, that's the first appearance of Grievous and Ventress and characters like that.
Right.
That I do think are really cool. Yeah, so, I don't know. I think it kind of sucks, because like I said, I feel like voice actors do kind of get screwed on both ends, where they're on the one hand, they're like, okay, well, you're a voice actor, so you can only do voice acting stuff. And then on the other side, the animation becomes big. They make a movie, and then they recast him anyway with a quote unquote bigger, more established actor. So I do kind of feel for her on this. I can sense the disappointment in her official statement. But at the same time, I'm sure Rosario Dawson will do a great job. I think that she's probably capable of doing this. I mean, I'm trying to think, if I'm not really that familiar with Rosario Dawson's career. I know of her, but hopefully she can do the role justice and do it well and do some cool lightsaber stuff. It will be interesting to actually see, I guess you would call her a failed Jedi in The Mandalorian. That'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited that they're going to bring Ahsoka into Mandalorian. I think that's a cool idea. And like I said, my only skin in this game is just I feel like that Ashley could have done it if she'd been given the opportunity. And I do think no, and I was going to say, I can see what you're saying. They can look at it from the standpoint of doesn't have a lot of current live action credits. They can look at it from the standpoint of, well, she's just a voice actor. For my speaking just from my own personal experience, before I was an inker, because a lot of people still only think of me as an inker. Before I was an inker, I was a penciler and a writer way before I was an inker, and I only became an inker to help a friend of mine out. And the reason he trusts me to ink his stuff is because I was ghosting over his work, helping him finish pencils anyway. That's the funny thing. But then certain people only view me as one thing, when in reality I'm not just one thing. So I understand what it's like to be typecast and only thought of as doing one thing. So that's my only thing. I mean, there's some controversy actually associated with the casting of Rosario Dawson because of some comments she's made in the past. I'm not going to comment on any of those. I'm not aware of any of that beyond the fact that I know that there is some controversy involved. My only hope is that whatever they do with Ahsoka, I hope it's just fun and entertaining because I really like The Mandalorian, and I like the idea of introducing a Jedi into The Mandalorian. And it makes sense that it's going to play into that because of how The Mandalorian actually ends. So
Peggy mentions really kind of the, I guess, sort of the obvious. She says, I think it's interesting that Rosario Dawson looks like an older version of Ahsoka Tano. And of course, that does absolutely factor into it. Sometimes you just go with the obvious and just say, well, that actor looks the part. You know what I mean? And maybe they feel that, Ashley doesn't. And I know I've already seen memes and stuff like that where they do like the colorization and they make Rosario look like Ahsoka, and she does look pretty convincing just in the homemade images that I've seen that fans are doing. But she also says she totally agrees with the disappointment aspect that voice actors do get shafted a lot. That's kind of my point as well, is that unfortunately, that is part of the business. And so I just wanted to point this out because it is a pretty big story. The casting of Rosario Dawson was a big thing. There's a lot of fans that are very happy about it, very excited, but there's also a lot of fans that are disappointed and outright pissed off.
Yeah, and I'm not that angry about it, to be honest. I've seen a lot of stuff that Rosario Dawson has been in. I think she's a talented actress. So I know that she can play this role. I have no you know what I mean? Like, I know she should be able to, she'll probably do a good job. And I, like I said, I'm excited to have a Jedi, you know what I mean? Like in The Mandalorian. Like, I love that idea, because we're getting back to those classic, Star Wars kind of things, having a Jedi, even in a cameo role. I'm very excited about that.
Peggy brings up, I wonder how many Jedi are left out there in The Mandalorian. And I have that question myself. I've always wondered that as a Star Wars fan, how many Jedi did survive through the Galactic Civil War and all that stuff, because I am big into lore and all that stuff. And, I always think that, of course, there should be some that survive because there's thousands of worlds within the Republic, and there's the Outer Rim, and there's Beyond the Rim, and surely, there are numerous Jedi that survived, by the seat of their pants. Or I remember also, like in the Star Wars role-playing game, before they really established like the prequels or anything, and very little was known about the Jedi, and they kind of had to make stuff up. They had two player characters. One was the failed Jedi, and one was what they called the minor Jedi. And the idea of the minor Jedi was that it basically was like a Padawan before they had Padawans, because that term hadn't been invented yet. And the minor Jedi was like an apprentice that hadn't finished their training. So Vader never got around to killing them. And then the failed Jedi was kind of like Ahsoka. They were a person who trained to be a Jedi but didn't make it for whatever reason. So I still remember those concepts. So I think those concepts would be fun to play with in The Mandalorian. You know what I mean? Those kind of ideas I think would be kind of cool. And now with
and
Ahsoka coming, those things can happen. That door is being opened.
And I was just going to point out, just like you pointed out to me, to because I actually went back and actually did some searching in Rebels, and I did watch that final battle between Obi-Wan and Maul that they actually did in Rebels. And along those same lines, I did a little bit more deep diving too, because I was curious, because I wanted to see what they did with the idea that Anakin is Vader and the fact that Ahsoka, that they knew each other. And for me, I watched a lot of those clips and actually watched some of those episodes, and those were terribly compelling as someone who enjoyed Clone Wars to know, because Ahsoka knows that Anakin is in that armor. She knows that Vader is Anakin. She can sense it. And that stuff was really, really interesting that they did in Rebels between Ahsoka and Anakin. It was really cool.
Yeah, I wanted him to kill her, but obviously, if I had gotten what I wanted, then we would not have her coming in the Mandalorian. So, because I thought it would be really cool to have Vader just kill her, just straight up kill her, and just show his complete transformation to the dark side, that he would actually kill his old apprentice and all that stuff. And because Ahsoka is like a fan favorite, I thought it would really solidify the dark side and the evil of Darth Vader. But I'm actually happy to see that she's going to be in the show. I think having a live action version of her will be fun. And again, the bigger thing for me is I'm always into the lore building, the world building. And now we're opening a door in the Mandalorian that I want to go through and find out more about possible Jedi and all that kind of stuff that may be hanging around, in the era of the Mandalorian.
Very cool.
And Peggy points out that the Mandalorian is now a dad who is dealing with a Force creature, so looking for someone who can help him understand how to take care of his son. And that Peggy, I think you hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly what I think they're going to do. Is Ahsoka is going to help the Mandalorian figure out exactly what Baby Yoda, the child. I just like Baby Yoda. I like calling him Baby Yoda. But that the child. His nature and all that kind of stuff. And Ahsoka may have some answers about his origins and all that stuff as well. So that also can be interesting.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome.